He said as much about the land and the water. He was well pleased, and he said it was good when that earth brought forth vegetation. He made the moon and the stars to govern the day and the night, and when they did, he said it was good. Animals of the sea and beasts of the field, there was one word used to describe them at the beginning: good. But then there was even something better than all of that: man and woman. And when God created Adam and Eve, he looked at them and then everything around them, and he simply said, it is good. See, we're the crowning jewels of this magnificent creation. God finds unsurpassing joy in every single one of us. And today, he is calling us to find that same joy in him and even in each other and all that he's made too. And so, to help us with that, as those of you who were here last week heard, we're in the midst of this new message series that's going to take us a while, but it's called His Story. And we're going to be taking this wide lens view of the single story of the Bible. We're going to hear how his story has been revealed in history, and now today and forever it changes our stories. Now last week we looked at what it was like before the beginning of the world, remembering there was a time when all that there was God and love. Now today, God's awesome power to create out of nothing pulls us into the story. Now, my experience is that whenever Genesis chapter 1 and the creation account is the basis for a message in church, there's one thing that people are wanting to hear from the pastor, or quite frankly not wanting to hear it, depending on their perspective, and that is a detailed scientific debunking of evolution. But that's not really the road that I think Genesis 1 actually takes us down. And it's not what we're going to talk about today, at least. Now, that doesn't mean I'm wishy-washy at all on the subject of how we all got here. Let me be very clear that all life finds its beginning in God. We are creations of God. And because of this, all life, no matter how valuable or invaluable it's considered to be, is to be treasured and cherished. And all attempts at trying to explain the meaning of our lives apart from God's design for us will fall short. All Christians should be united in belief in the words that are said at the beginning of the Apostles' Creed. You've heard them before and said them before. I believe in God the Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth. But there's something that I've noticed because of today's culture war, especially in the public schools, about the discussion of creation. So much time is spent talking about believing in or not believing in the doctrine of creation. The very little time is spent by Christians focusing on what it means to live under the doctrine of creation. Of course, we need to understand and believe in the fact that we were made by God, but we also need to understand why that matters for us. Now, to help you understand what I mean, and you're going to need to stick with me here for just a little bit this morning, but I think it'll prove to be worthwhile. If you understand what I mean, I want you to consider how Christians often talk about certain things in church, especially Christian leaders. For instance, we tend to talk about money in the church like this: you should tithe. And you know what? The Bible talks a lot about that, and it's a true statement, and I agree with it. But what happens for a lot of us when we hear that? Our ears close, our bodies tense up, our defenses rise. Maybe pride comes on some of us. But you know what's not going to happen if I simply say about money, you should tithe, and then say nothing more? Even if we all believe in God the Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth? church offerings probably won't increase. And we kind of talk about sex in the church like this. Don't do it till you're married. Again, that is God's design. And again, I agree with this. And again, I could say it over and over and over again to a group of people who claim to believe in God the Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth. And you know what, sadly? It's really a battle that we're losing with our young people. Now, sometimes I'm really guilty of talking to you in the incorrect way. It probably happens a lot, but there's one way where it happens a lot because of my passion about it. You've heard me say, you should go to Bible study. And I mean it a lot. And God says the same thing. I have him to back me up. It's something that Christians should do. But here's the thing. I keep saying it and saying it and saying it. And while there are many who've responded, there are also those, again, believers in God as their creator, who tell me and him, no. And I think this is why. Now, besides some good old-fashioned rebellion, and for some, certainly, some misplaced priorities, chances are that busy people hear something like that as just one more thing to do. And we start to say, well, I can still believe in God and not have to go and spend that extra hour. And so we start to think about it like it's a guide or a rule, and something that's meant to hold us back from our joy rather than to lead us to experience more of it. So simply saying, go do it, doesn't work very well. But how much more motivated would you be if you really knew and believed in this awesome God who holds the power to create this whole world and to bless you with so many good things, and yet he wants you to know him more personally every day. He doesn't want to seem very far away from you at all. Instead, he wants you right here in your heart. He loves you so much